You've probably noticed that Hollywood keeps on remaking the same movies over and over and over again. Have you ever wondered why? Well, there's a simple reason. The stories were good enough to last. Not the special effects, not the technology, not even the actors, the stories. And whether you realize it or not, the same principle applies to your restaurant branding. In today's video, I want to talk about why storytelling is critical to restaurant branding, why great stories outlive trends and tactics, and why every restaurant has a story worth telling, even if it's never been clearly articulated. Let's get into the video. Okay, here's why Hollywood keeps on returning to the same stories. See, Hollywood does not remake films because it lacks ideas. It remakes films because the emotional arc of the movie has already been proven. The characters are familiar to the audience, and the story already resonates emotionally with people who are buying the ticket. Having a good story lowers risk. It lowers emotional risk and financial risk for both the bank and the person buying the ticket. When you have a story that you're already familiar with, then audiences know exactly what they're walking into emotionally, even if the details change, even if the actors change, even if the scenery changes. That level of familiarity with the story creates comfort, and comfort drives choice. Studios are not betting so much on novelty. They're betting on meaning that lasts. They're betting on movies that will get ticket goers into the seats. Now, what does this have to do with restaurants? Well, a lot of times restaurants brand themselves around things like menu items, prices, promotions, values. But customers don't build long term relationships and long term memory around those things. They remember how a place made them feel. They remember why going to a certain restaurant mattered. Maybe there's a connection with a life event at that particular restaurant. Maybe it's the routine of going there every week or maybe every month. That why is the customer's story. Story gives food context. It gives flavor meaning. It gives the experience a frame of reference. Without it, restaurants tend to blend together, one into the next. Now, here's why every restaurant already has a story worth telling. See, this is where a lot of restaurant owners underestimate themselves. They think, well, we don't have a story, we just run a restaurant. But that's never true. Your story might be how the recipes came from your family. Your story might be why this particular cuisine mattered to you so much growing up. Your story might be about the neighborhood you serve and why you serve it. Maybe your story has something to do with how your restaurant survived the difficult years, including the years through the pandemic. Or your story could be what you want people to feel the moment they walk through the door of your restaurant. Culture, background, struggle, intention, these are all story elements. The problem is not that restaurants don't have stories. The problem is that they assume that customers already know their story, when in reality, they don't. Okay, here's why story creates a different kind of value in the mind of your diners. See, marketing tells people what you sell. Your story tells them why it exists. It's a big difference. And that distinction matters more than most owners realize. Without having a good story, restaurants feel interchangeable in the minds of diners. Choices, they begin to default to price or convenience. And without a story, loyalty is fragile at best. When you have a good story behind your brand, customers feel connected to that particular brand. They take a sense of pride, a sense of ownership in supporting that brand. The restaurant feels human to them, and the decision to eat there feels personal. It's a decision that is important to them for whatever reason. Having a good story reduces comparison, it reduces shopping around. It puts you on the short list of restaurants that diners want to go to time and time again. It gives people a solid reason to choose you beyond just having a transactional relationship. Now, today, having a good story matters more than ever. Why? Because today, customers are overwhelmed, they're distracted, they feel anxious. And on top of all of that, they're very cautious with their spending. They want value for their hard earned dollars. And when money feels tighter, people don't stop spending, but they want to make sure that they justify that spending. And that justification is not mental, it's not logical, it's emotional. They ask questions like, is this purchase going to be worth it? And having a good story behind your brand helps them answer that question without constantly having to discount your food, discounting your meals. It explains why a meal costs what it costs. It explains why your dining experience matters to them. And it explains why your particular restaurant is different from the myriad of other choices that they have. Now, here's something that's commonly misunderstood. Story builds familiarity even for first time guests. See, your story is not just for your regular diners. It helps first time guests feel oriented, get a sense of where your restaurant falls in their choice and why it matters so much. When people have an understanding of where the food comes from, why certain dishes exist, when they understand what matters to the restaurant and where the restaurant stands, that experience feels a lot less risky to them. Familiarity does not always come from repetition. Sometimes it just comes from having context, from having the right frame of reference. Now, here's where ethnic restaurants have a huge advantage a lot of times over larger chains. See, chains have to manufacture stories, independent restaurants don't. Especially ethnic restaurants that are tied to the communities where they exist. Your culture, your flavors, your community ties, those are real. Those are solid. They're lived every single day. And that's a huge advantage, but it's only an advantage if it's shared with the public. Way too often, the richest stories, the best stories stay behind the scenes while the customer only sees the menu. And that is a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity for marketing, and it's a missed opportunity to get your story told. Now, you might think that having a story requires a big platform, but it doesn't. See, this is where a lot of small restaurant owners overthink the process. Story doesn't mean a long speech. Your story does not have to include a full wall of text or a complicated brand narrative. It can be a sentence on the menu, maybe a short about section on your website. Maybe it's even a server explaining the history of a dish or why a dish matters or why a dish is included on the menu, or maybe even a photo paired with a little bit of context. Small storytelling moments add up, they compound over time, and they slowly begin to shape how people remember you and remember your brand. Now, stories outlive tactics, they outlive promotions, and here's why. See, promotions expire, menus change, trends fade away, but your story, that stays, that remains as a constant in the minds of customers when they come across your brand. And again, that's why Hollywood keeps returning to the same narratives and why restaurants that are remembered rarely rely on price and promotions alone to bring customers through the front door. Your story becomes the backbone that holds everything together in your restaurant. Restaurants don't win because they're louder. They win because they're meaningful. And meaning comes from your brand and is backed by your story. So you don't need a bigger budget to tell your story. You just need to stop assuming that people already know it. In the post pandemic economy, it's important to remember that just having good food is not good enough anymore. And if no one walks through the front door of your restaurant, then nothing else matters. I'm Donovan Garrett. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.